Hello, everybody, and welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything revolves around Fantasy Premier League. Correspondent Week James. I was supposed to say my name is Suj.
I was going to say, I was emptiness there. What are you doing?
Just assuming that people know now.
Decided to change the order on podcast 800. My name's James. How are you, Suj?
All good. Ready for a busy week. We've recorded a couple, and this is going out now Wednesday morning.
Afternoon.
Like. Wednesday afternoon. So we're kind of halfway through Correspondent Week for some people. Where are we going, James? We're not travelling too far.
Yeah, south of the river. Let me introduce you to our jokes.
No.
Let me introduce you to our Arsenal correspondent, Boo, the lovely and wonderful Adam Pritchard. How are you, Adam?
I'm good, thanks, James. How are you?
I'm all right, mate. I heard you on Who Got the Assist the other week, and you really do sound like Richard.
Ayoade. It was one of those.
Incredible.
Where, I never heard it before, and then now I can't unhear it.
Well, that's weird. I can't hear it at all. I don't get the connection. But I mean, I'll take it as a compliment even if it's not intended as one.
How you feeling about Arsenal's season, mate?
I mean, the result sort of at time of recording yesterday, it's only a friendly, so it doesn't really matter. But losing to Chelsea is never great, especially when you're playing them so early on in the season, and they're looking pretty good, and they put out a sort of mixture of a first strength and kind of bit part player team, and still managed to put in a pretty good performance. And we put out pretty close to what I think will be our team to face Brentford on the opening day, and still some issues to work through, let's say. So not pessimistic, but not optimistic.
What would Richard Ayoade say is in the middle there? What does that mean?
I'm whelmed, I think.
Whelmed rather than over or under. You're just whelmed.
Yeah.
Okay. There's a few players hanging about who we thought were leaving who are still there, namely Granit Xhaka. Is he staying with you now? What's happening now?
Yeah, so it was a bit weird. I thought it was kind of all but done, haggling over the precise nature of the fee with Roma, but it now turns out that, it looks like he's going to stay. Mikel Arteta said after the match yesterday that he's going to be with us for the season. I think Arsenal were asking for 20 million euros or so. Not sure what that works out to in pounds, but Roma weren't willing to pay that for somebody who's 29, which I guess makes sense if they can get sort of similar players for a lesser fee. Obviously, they've been linked to Douglas Luiz, actually, from Villa, I think he's 23, for sort of 20 to 25 million euros, which, I mean, if I was them, I'd definitely make that move. That was a bit of a strange one, but no, yeah, it seems like he's staying around.
And are you trying to get your goalkeeper replaced?
Yes and no at the same time. So Leno I believe he's got 2 years left on his current contract, and it doesn't look like he wants to sign a new one, or the club are sort of particularly bothered about him signing a new one. So we're sort of forward planning in a rare attempt at being logical for Arsenal. And obviously the conclusion you come to is, we need to spend 35 million on Aaron Ramsdale now to be our backup keeper.
It's forward planning, but
the logical after selling Emi Martinez for 20 million.
Oh, don't start that. I get so annoyed when people bring that up.
Tell us how you feel then, because it's going to get brought up.
Okay. I think it's a very easy hindsight take to make. At the time, Emi Martinez had made, I think, less than 100 senior appearances in his career, and he was 27, 26, which for a goalkeeper, especially when he's being loaned out as well, when he's not sort of starting regularly, isn't great. Yeah, he'd shown a really good run of form coming into the Arsenal side, and was really, really good, and I did want him to stay. But it's easy to forget how good Leno had been prior to his injury, and Leno was still our sort of de facto number one. He was earning more. He had the sort of better CV, if you want to call it that. And you can't keep two goalkeepers who want to be number one on the books in a transfer window where you need to raise funds. No one came in for Leno. Someone came in for Martinez. So you sort of have to sell him. I can see why from the outside it looks bad now, but I think at the time it was a completely logical decision to make, really.
I think Martinez got to the point where he didn't want to sit on the bench anymore either, so he wasn't going to want to stick around. So, yeah, you had to make that choice. I think the thing is, when you're talking about future planning, the amount of money that you're talking about for the bids for Ramsdale or Bachmann versus the quality of the goalkeeper doesn't quite, it's a bit confusing why you're paying so much for keepers that are all right, but don't seem to be top four standard. And I mean, both James's club and my club have picked up goalkeepers in the window so far and haven't spent anywhere near, I mean, ours was a loan at the moment, but anywhere near that kind of money of 30, 35 million pounds.
Yeah, I think the issue is I'm not sure what the situation is like at your respective clubs, but we need to sort of up our English quota, which is why the keepers we've been most heavily linked with, Sam Johnston and Ramsdale, obviously English, so that you're always going to pay a premium when it comes to that. But yeah, no, the Ramsdale one I'm sort of not against necessarily. I'm against at 30 million because I just don't think it's a wise way to sort of be spending resources in this window when we've got other positions we need to sort of strengthen more seriously. But Sheffield United fans seem to sort of think he's like pretty decent. So
he had a lot to do, Adam.
Well, no, yeah, well, he's going to come to Arsenal, so you never know. He's not exactly going to be sort of twiddling his thumbs at the back. But yeah, it's also slightly worrying that he's been so highly recommended by our, I think it's Iñaki Kanya, who is our sort of goalkeeping coach. And he's the guy who sort of really vouched for Alex Runnison, who is so bad that we now need to sell him after only seeing him play like 3 times. He's like, came in as supposedly our number 2 goalkeeper and is just like really not up to it. So it's a little bit...
Is he number 2 as it stands going into... If you don't buy it before game week 1, will
he
be on the bench?
Yeah, he will be. But I mean, there was talk of a loan to a Turkish club. I think that broke down for sort of some contractual reason, but he's on the way out. And our number 3 at the moment, Arthur Okonkwo, who's literally just been promoted to the first team, I think maybe 2-3 weeks ago. So we're in the markets for a number 2, which I guess Ramsdale is that man that they want.
I think the point is, if you buy a Ramsdale, and chances are a little bit perhaps like what's happening with West Ham, where Areola might compete with Flappy this year. If you pay that money for Ramsdale, when Leno does go, he's going to become number 1, isn't he? And then there's probably a little bit of a concern. You go, well, with what Arsenal want to be, is that good enough long term? And I guess we don't have the answers to that. He's still young. But he's not someone who I think he's going to go on and become England number 1, for example. I don't think.
No, it's not. It's not like the situation with Ben White, where if you spending 50 million on Ben White, it's like, okay, I can see it's a lot of money, but I think he's a very good defender now,
yep.
And he's at the age where he can be at the heart of Arsenal's defence for the next sort of 5-6 years in an ideal world, and become and develop and grow and become really, really quite good, and maybe the sort of starter for England. But yeah, I agree with you. Ramsdale isn't at the level where I think he's going to become a world beater. I can see him becoming a pretty good goalkeeper, and maybe sort of being a pretty good goalkeeper is all you sort of need.
Ben White, happy with it, obviously. It is a lot of money, I agree, but we've discussed previously, I think it's a good deal for everybody. Yeah,
no, I think it makes a lot of sense. I think he, like we were just talking about earlier, he fulfills the English quota, and that's why it's going to be a slightly higher fee than perhaps it would otherwise be. But he fills that gap David Luiz has left the good part of David Luiz, the sort of bringing the ball from the back with his feet, which Gabriel isn't so adept at, but Ben White seems to be able to do that pretty well. He seems to be able to beat the forward line press quite effectively from what I've seen. And he's quite versatile. He can play in a couple of different positions, which with the impending injury crisis that I'm sure we'll have at some point is always very handy.
I'm sure we'll have an injury crisis. Are you expecting White, Gabriel to be first choice centre backs?
Yeah, so it won't be like that at the start of the season because Gabriel is injured. He had to pull out of the Brazil Olympic squad, and I don't think he's returned to training just yet. So I'm not really sure what the timeline is like on that. But yeah, no, I expect that to be the partnership.
So what we saying, Murray starting game week 1, probably?
Yeah, it'll be, I would guess it would be White and then one of Holding or Murray. Murray makes more sense because he's left-footed, so he could be on the left side. But I'm not really sure if Ben White has played left-sided centre-back before. But yeah.
Not for Brighton. Leeds fans might be able to correct me if you might. I think, I want to say played in midfield quite a lot for Leeds. He obviously did, particularly in the middle part of the season, did quite a bit for Brighton last year as well. I wouldn't have thought so, but he's comfy on the ball. I don't see that as a right-footed playing left-sided centre-back. If that's what he came to, I don't see that's a huge issue.
Yeah, I mean the gap between Holding and Murray isn't sort of big enough where I think it would be worth sort of putting him out of position this early on.
Talk to Suj about Callum Chambers. Are you going to start right back for you?
First, tell me who's going to play right back. Left back, I think, is locked in as
Calfu.
Tierney.
Yeah, Calfu, Callum Chambers. No, yeah, he'll start the season at right back. He may well end up being the right back for the whole season, to be honest. Bellerin's not first choice anymore. I don't really know what's happened to him, to be quite honest. I think it's a combination of the accumulation of injuries has just seriously hampered his development, and it's sort of reduced the advantage that his pace gave him, because that was always his biggest asset, was his sort of pace going forward and his recovery pace. And the multiple knee injuries has just meant he's not quite as quick off the line as he used to be. And yeah, so he's really, really stalled. It looks like the move to Inter Milan will now happen with, I think it'll be either a season or a 2-season loan with an option to buy. And we haven't been seriously linked with any sort of incoming right backs. So yeah, Callum Chambers will probably be.
What would that leave you in terms of players that could play there then at right back?
Chambers and Cedric.
Oh, of course, Cedric. So Cedric's permanently yours now, isn't he?
Yeah, we signed. Yeah, it was a loan initially, and then I think he was a free agent after that.
Well, that's fair enough as an understudy, Cedric. So tell Suj then, Callum Chambers versus Ben White, 4.5 million FPL defenders. Where would your money go, Adam?
I've got Ben White, and I bought him when he was at Brighton, knowing that he was going to go to Arsenal.
What, because you wanted 4 Arsenal players?
No, that's not part of the plan. It's not often that you'll get the chance to pick up defenders in what used to be top 6, maybe it's top 4 plus 2 now for 4.5 million. I don't think Arsenal are defensively too bad, but to be honest with you, yeah, I mean, what's the difference between Ben White and Callum Chambers? But the real question is just pay the extra $500,000 to Tierney, right?
Well, see, that was my sort of thinking originally. But then I watched it. This might just be a bit knee-jerk off the back of watching sort of one friendly. But our high line against Chelsea was quite concerning. Like, if that's the way we intend to play, fair enough. But I think it's going to be sort of a little bit touch and go in the opening weeks of the season, especially with Ben White coming in and sort of getting used to a new team and communicating with his teammates, which is even more important when you're playing such a sort of aggressive defensive line. I can see us getting caught out quite a lot. And we got caught out sort of more times than the 2-1 scoreline against Chelsea would indicate. So I had Tierney in, and then I actually dropped down after watching the game to Ben White.
So White over Chambers for you?
Just in terms of like assuredness of starts. I mean, I think Chambers will and should be the starting right back for the season, but I'd be more confident. Like I would say Ben White, all being good, makes 38 starts next season, whereas Chambers makes sort of, I don't know, 28 to 30, and Cedric comes in for him when needed.
But if he's going to play like Cafu, mate.
I know all joking aside, his delivery is actually quite good. It's I mean, Suj can attest to it from the West Ham game. He puts in some really good crosses, and because he obviously played in midfield when he was on loan at Fulham one of the seasons they got relegated, and he's quite adept on the ball, and he's really versatile, and he seems to be. What Arteta likes is kind of honest, hard workers. I think it's why he's kind of a fan of Xhaka and isn't sort of too sad to see that he's not going to leave in the end. And one thing I'll say about Callum Chambers is that he'll never sort of shirk his responsibility. I don't really ever remember seeing him sort of, the way you can sometimes tell if a player's heart's not really in a challenge or if he's kind of giving up. I can't ever say I've seen that of Callum Chambers.
Just in an odd way, would Chambers playing make Tierney a better asset? Do they play as fullbacks in the same way, or is it a case that when Chambers plays, his natural instinct is to be defensive, and it allows Tierney to get a lot higher?
I think Chambers can be more attacking than you'd sort of assume, but yeah, the way that we would sort of typically set up is having it can either be Chambers sort of coming inside to make like a sort of central three, one of the deeper lying centre midfielders pushing out to the right hand side to sort of cover that right wing back area, and then allowing Tierney sort of more license to move up the left hand side of the pitch. So yeah, I think unless we go out and sign sort of a flying fullback on the right-hand side, the majority of our sort of our kind of crossing wing-back play will come from Tierney. And I mean, I think Tierney's going to be given license to bomb on regardless, but I suppose, yeah, having Chambers does mean there's more of an onus on him.
I've got a couple of cheap right-backs if you want them, mate.
Yeah, but none of them are any good.
I know that. Between the two of us, I'm not sure we've had some brilliant fullbacks in North London over the years. I'm not sure that either of us have got a good right back between us at the moment.
No, it's weird. You sort of think back to the days when we had Bakary Sagna and you had Kyle Walker back when they were both in their pomp, and it's fallen quite away. Well, I mean, you say the same about centre backs. We had Koscielny and Mertesacker in their peak, and then Vertonghen and Alderweireld.
Yeah, actually, this is just disappointing. This is why it's now a big four this is why it's a big four rather than a big six.
Yeah. Do you know what expressions in his YouTube video? And he said it quite right. He said, "North London's not white and North London's not red. It's just dead at the moment."
Right, let's move that conversation on. I notice the official website has a bit of a problem at the moment, and we should again clarify we're recording this on Monday, the 2nd of August. There's a lot of clubs who have players who are injured and the site is not flagging them at the moment. I understand Thomas Partey's probably out of game week 1 as well, Adam. Is that right?
Yeah. I don't know if you've seen the picture of the challenge one of the Chelsea players put in on him. Nasty challenge for a friendly. Like his ankle properly sort of 45, 90 degrees. So yeah, that looks like he's out for sort of 4 to 6 weeks. It's I saw a sort of sports scientist or sports medical doctor or something like that comparing it to what Harry Maguire had at the end of the season. So sort of minimum 4 to 6 weeks he's looking at, which isn't good. And it's another reason why I'm sort of slightly tentative on going for Tierney at that extra 0.5 million, just because I think not having Partey in there significantly weakens our midfield, which in turn sort of weakens the cover for the defence.
So what are we looking at this year? We're looking at generally kind of a 4-2-3-1, and you think what as season would start, Xhaka and who in midfield?
It's interesting in terms of the formation. I think we will probably start in a 4-2-3-1. Arteta has always signalled the intent to go to a 4-3-3. And I think the plan was, in sort of transfer-wise, right, we'll sell Xhaka, which will allow us to move to a 4-3-3, and we'll bring in sort of more of a dynamic number 8 style player to sort of have Partey sit at the pivot of the central three, and then a number 8 and probably Smith-Rowe alongside them in the centre. But with Xhaka staying, I think that will mean we probably stick with a 4-2-3-1. With Partey out, I would guess it would probably be El Neni, even though it probably shouldn't be. But Arteta seems to trust him, and he's the more experienced head, whereas Sambi Lokonga, who's just come in from Anderlecht for, I can't remember how much he cost, but he's 22, 23. He looks like a really, really promising player. He was called up to train with the Belgium international squad before the Euros, and highly rated by Vincent Kompany, who probably knows what he's talking about. So yeah, I think he'll get game time. He won't start the season, but my preference would be to sort of see him eased in, get sort of 10 starts or so in the Premier League. So he looks like a good player.
Is Lucas Torreira still your player as well? I'm just looking down FPL prices. Or is he on his way?
He is still he's contracted at Arsenal, but he had some personal issues. I think, like right during the heights of COVID, I think it might have been his mother or one of his family members got quite seriously ill and was in the hospital back in South America, and he never really sort of settled in England, and he's very close to his family. So I think his desire is either to move back to Italy, where obviously we signed him from, or go back to South America. But finance-wise, I don't think the move back to South America is going to work out. So it looks like we'll loan him back to somewhere in Italy.
And a couple of other players who might leave, Maitland-Niles, and I guess, was Joe Willock involved in the friendly against Chelsea? Yeah,
Joe Willock was involved, scored a goal that was over the line, but weirdly ruled out because they weren't using goal line tech or VAR at all.
We don't like VAR, so that's fine with me.
Yeah, Maitland-Niles off to Burnley seems like it's sort of gathering momentum. Yeah, I thought wages might be an issue there, but apparently not. And yeah, Joe Willock, I think, will eventually move. I think Arsenal are holding out for sort of 25 million or so, but I think
so cheeky off basically 2 months football, isn't it?
Yeah,
so cheeky.
I think especially with the way Newcastle are, and it doesn't seem like there are many other buyers interested. I think we'll just say, yeah, we'll take sort of 20 million, which is, I believe, what they're offering at the moment.
He's probably going to go back there on loan, I think, isn't he?
I think it'll be permanent.
Oh, really?
I don't really see the sense in a loan, because if you think about it, his market value, if we're speaking financially, is probably at its peak right now.
Yeah.
I'd love to see him keep up that form over the course of another season, but I think it's highly, highly unlikely. So I think it makes more sense just to sort of say, yeah, he's come through the academy, he's put in good performances or standard, solid performances for us when he's been needed in the Europa League and in the Premier League. 20 million off sort of a short loan. Sounds like good business to me.
Steve Bruce is now standing outside the Gallagate starting a whip round, I think, if he's got to buy it permanently, and he'll be going on for a while. Is he not good enough to play for you, Adam Willock?
He's good enough to be a sub. He's good enough to be an impact player off the bench, but I don't think that's either what he wants or what he needs at this point in his career. I think he's at the stage, and it's the same with a lot of the kind of English academy kids that we've got. Same with an Nketiah, same with someone like Reece Nelson, same with Maitland-Niles. I don't think any of them want to be impact players off the bench. They're sort of at that 23, bordering on 24 age where you're not a kid anymore and you're not seen as a kid anymore. People are starting to expect them to deliver on the potential that they supposedly have.
For example, you take Saka over Willock, no question. You take Smith-Rowe over Willock, no question. You keep Martinelli over Willock, no question. So suddenly, from this crop of young players, he's quite far down the pecking order. And you can see, Saka and Smith-Rowe, we'll talk about Smith-Rowe in a second, Martinelli are going to get good minutes this season, I'd say, for Arsenal. Willock won't. So what's the point, kind of thing?
Yeah, and also it's stylistically, it's not the sort of same fit. The way he's played his best football at Newcastle was those sort of surging runs, breaking late into the box. And you can say, oh, well, Arsenal could do with that. We don't score a lot of goals from midfield. But his sort of short interchange ball progression, like his quick passing, isn't quite there. He's not particularly... I've never really found him very calm under pressure, sort of, especially where we would need him sort of slightly deeper in midfield. If someone presses him, I don't think he's particularly sort of good at what you see a lot of midfielders do is the way they can sort of pivot their body quite quickly, and it almost seems like they've got eyes in the back of their head and they've got sort of a 360 degree vision of the pitch. And I've never really felt like he's quite up to scratch with that. I think he'd work quite well kind of almost as more of a traditional kind of centre forward in the kind of Football Manager CF kind of parlance, where he's sort of slightly off the main striker and he's got someone to sort of do the hold up play and allow him to make those bursting runs into the box.
So Smith-Rowe is one that I've had an eye on. And what are you reading into getting the number 10 shirt and the contract? Do you think that is a clear indication, right, you're going to start week in, week out as our number 10 and play in that position?
Yeah, I expect him to start the majority of our games. I expect him to start more games than not. The number, people say, oh, what do numbers even mean nowadays? But everyone knows the number 10 means a lot.
Of course.
Not to kind of sound up my own arse, but especially the number 10 at Arsenal, it's sort of air quotes a big club. It's a big shirt. It comes with a lot of pedigree. You see some of the players who have worn it in the past, and it means more than just a number. And the way Arteta spoke in the kind of stuff that came out after the contract was signed, he said something along the lines of, and I won't get the exact quote right, that he never likes to give players too much at an early stage, but Smith-Rowe wanted the shirt. And so Arteta was almost like, okay, you want the shirt, you want the number 10, you know what this means, prove that you're worth it here, or prove that you're worthy of it rather, here it is. And so yeah, I think that's a sign that he's got confidence in him, and I don't think he would give him the number 10 shirt if he didn't think he was ready to wear it.
And prior to him signing the contract, there were a few people sniffing around. You heard kind of very vague rumours of Villa maybe putting in a bid. So the fact that he signed, got the shirt, and obviously in FPL he's priced pretty cheap at 5.5.
Yeah, Villa were seriously interested. They definitely put in 2 bids, and I'm pretty sure they were going to make a third. So they were definitely interested. I never really worried that he was going anywhere. I was always pretty confident that he would stay and sign, and it was just a case of the agent leading Villa on, as it were, to sort of give his client a better contract, which he's more than entitled to do. But yeah, no, 5.5. I'd be surprised if he wasn't in most sort of engaged managers' teams come the start of the season. He's in mine at the moment for sure.
Big cool. I'd definitely in for you, yeah?
Yeah. It's not one that I really think you need to overthink. People say, oh, but will he start every game? It's like, well, he might not start every game, but he's 5.5 and he's at that price where even if you don't want to start him opening day of the season away to Brentford, you don't have to. You can have someone else come in and play for him. He's not a guy that you're relying on every week to sort of return points, but I wouldn't be surprised if he sort of put up 5 goals, sort of 10 assists this season. That wouldn't surprise me at all, and I'm not going to do the mental maths to try and work out what that is FPL points-wise.
No, but I mean, he picked up 74 points in, 1,400 minutes. Quite a lot of that would have come off the bench. So just double that up. If he gets 3,000 minutes, 150 points, James, off of 5.5.
Yeah, that's difficult to argue with that. I mean, do you think he's going to be a lock in that 10 role then for you, Adam?
Yeah, well, who else do we have to play there?
It's a good question. One, you've spoken about the possible evolution to a 4-3-3, which when all your players are fit might be a possibility, and that might see him play a deeper role. Alternatively, could Saka play that role? Because I think he could. He'd play it very differently to Smith-Rowe.
I think Saka would be more suited to playing in a midfield 3 where he can sort of get on the ball and have more ability to drive forward with it. I think Saka would go central if we switch to could go central as part of that midfield if we switch to a 4-3-3. But yeah, Smith-Rowe can play on the left wing as well. So if Martinelli probably won't be back to start the season because he's away with Brazil at the Olympics, I would be surprised if Saka started the season as well. So Smith-Rowe could easily play out on the left if we wanted to start Aubameyang up front and Pepe out on the right and play a midfield 3, but I suspect he'll start the season in that number 10 role.
What are you anticipating? 2 questions. First, what do you anticipate the front 4 to be against Brentford as it stands now? And 2, is that the favoured long-term front 4 in your opinion?
So front 4, I would suspect it would be Lacazette up front, Aubameyang on the left, Smith-Rowe in behind, and Pepe out on the right. I don't think that would be. How many weeks after the opening game is the transfer window?
After game week 3.
Yeah, so I don't think it will be that same sort of front 4 come the end of the transfer window. I'm hoping we sign a player to fit in there. And even then, I would imagine sort of maybe Saka goes out on the left, Aubameyang goes up top, Smith-Rowe stays in behind and Pepe stays out on the right, or Lacazette up top, Aubameyang left, Smith-Rowe in behind and Saka on the right. But I get the feeling we might try and move Lacazette fairly soon. I don't think we'll do it before the opening game of the season, but I wouldn't be surprised if he left before the end of the window.
8.5 forward. It's not getting mentioned. It's interesting if he plays there, isn't he?
Not for me. I think there's so many options in the sort of... I mean, he's 0.5 more expensive than DCL and Bamford, and I don't think he's any... In fact, I think he's worse in terms of FPL points potential than both of those players, and I think he's probably not as good as someone like Antonio or Iheanacho. I'd even rather go for Ivan Toney over him.
That because they're playing you game week 1.
Yeah, no, I like I said, that high line, even Mbeumo, the midfielder, 5.5. I wouldn't say he's a bad shot at all. He scored. I'm not sure if you saw the goal he scored against, was it United? They played in a friendly recently. Really, really nice touch with the outside of his foot and a good finish. So, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they got some joy.
Do you having Mbeumo or Smith-Rowe game week 1? Are you having?
Can I make a cop-out and say I've got both at the moment?
Yes, mate. That's really interesting, actually.
Wow.
A lot of people be interested in Pepe because he finished the season on a fly. I want to say he might have been the top FPL point scorer the last 4 game weeks, I think. Any interest to you, Adam? Or are you too unsure on sort of if he's going to stay in the team, I guess?
Yeah, I would sort of add that note that I would be quite unsure how long he would stay in the team. I think he'll start the season mainly because I don't think Martinelli and Saka will be ready to start. It's just how long he has after that. But I mean, the good thing is for him, from a sort of thinking of him, Saka can play really, really well out on the left, even though he's put his best performances in for me on the right wing. He's perfectly capable on the left wing. So he could easily sort of stake a claim in those first couple of games and sort of make that spot his, because there is a real desire. Obviously, such an expensive signing, you kind of, even purely from a financial point of view, you're like, right, okay, we've got to make this work out. And there is a real desire to see him do well in the club, and he has, like you say, he has been improving. And towards the back end of last season, he put in some really, really good performances, I thought. So I don't think he's done anything to sort of to lose the shirt, if that makes sense.
Pepe for me always feels like he's in that kind of Mahrez bracket where, from an FPL point of view, it's like blank, 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 massive double-digit haul, blank, 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 double-digit haul. I don't have the data to back that up, but it just emotionally feels like he'll do nothing and then score 2 goals and an assist in a game and then do nothing again for a while. But he was a bit more consistent. I think it's one of those where the price differential between him and Smith-Rowe, and even between Saka and Smith-Rowe, probably leans towards just go with Smith-Rowe rather than pay the extra, because they're not worth that much more.
Well, and even you've got someone like Ferran Torres at 7 million who could potentially be playing sort of down the middle in the false 9 role. You've got the 6.5s, Rafinha, Buendia, all come in cheaper. I mean, especially Rafinha and Buendia, probably more assured of starts. Even someone like Villa just signed Leon Bailey. He would probably come in at maybe like 6.5 million. Not sure if he's been priced up yet, but
I didn't know it was official at the time of recording yet, Adam, to be honest. I know it looks like it's going to happen.
Breaking news. No, yeah. I think the problem with a lot of those Arsenal players with Lacazette and Pepe is, whilst they kind of, you put the name and you put the price out there and you think, oh yeah, that sounds quite intriguing. And then you sort of look at the bracket around them and think, there are just probably better options to start the season with. The only reason that there was 30 seconds where I had Pepe in my team. And I instantly realised there are just better. I'm just spending the extra 0.5 because I have the 0.5 to spend. I think it's probably almost worth dropping down to a 7 or a 6.5 and just keeping some money in the bank in case, like, something goes wrong early doors for you.
The flip, of course, is the price of particularly those two, Pepe and Lacazette. Like, there are so many options underneath. You can come down to them. So you've obviously got a great game week 1 fixture. If people are blocking in quite a template team and want to take a punt on someone for game week 1, knowing that they can fix that with an immediate transfer, I think those two come into the reckoning. But it's probably for that.
Listen, game week 1 punt. If you want to take a punt in game week 1, and you want an Arsenal player, there's only one punt worth going. Let's go whole hog, 10 million. Aubameyang.
Yeah, not for me.
Not me neither.
No, I was going to say.
Thanks, Adam. And on the next show, we'll be talking about.
But I mean, he's as cheap as he's ever been. There's really nothing to justify in his performances and his body language and anything getting him other than he's as cheap as he's ever been.
Well, and that's the thing. It's like sometimes I wish I could come here and make a case, a really, really tenuous, rose-tinted spectacle case on his pre-season form. But he's been really quite bad in pre-season. Like he's certainly saving up those goals and racking up the XG in preparation for the season. But even in the game against Chelsea, he had 2. The problem is that he's having 2 or 3 really quite good chances each friendly he's played that he's just completely fluffing. And you can say, oh, it's good to see him getting in those positions. And Yeah, it is good to see him getting in those positions, but how good is it to see if he keeps messing them up?
Can you put your finger on quite what's happened with him?
I think there's a couple of factors. I think, firstly, there is an element of the sort of age drop-off. He's into his 30s now. So much of what set him apart was his, like we were talking about with Bellerin, was his acceleration. And that's bound to sort of drop off with age. He's not going to keep it up forever. There is also a huge case of that last season, he just, for most of it, he just wasn't getting the service. He wasn't getting anywhere near the sort of amount of quality deliveries he needed in order to sort of get himself into scoring positions. And then I think it's just the age-old thing of, regardless of how experienced you are, when you're getting less opportunities, there's more pressure on the sort of scant ones that you do get. And yeah, I just suppose a large part of it was a bit of a weird year. He had some personal problems, and then obviously he got malaria, which isn't going to help. He had the issue where he turned up late to training a couple of times. He was benched for the North London derby. I just think there was a large part of last season that, for him, from a personal perspective, might just be one of those ones where you kind of just have to write it off. But there are some sort of underlying statistical factors, like him receiving sort of less key passes than he has done for Arsenal in the past, taking fewer shots per game, and where he is taking shots, they're not from as good positions as they were previously. So yeah, it's a amalgamation of a lot of weirdness, really.
Can I add one more to it? Should he be captain?
It's an interesting question. I don't really think captaincy matters as much in the modern game as people think it does, or perhaps as it used to. Arsenal have that. I'm not even sure if we still have that 5 captains thing. I don't really know if we have a proper, air quotes, captain anymore. I think we've got like Xhaka, who was about to leave and is now staying. Bellerin, who we're trying to sell. Aubameyang, who we've just talked about. I think Lacazette, who we're probably trying to sell, or at least we're not going to give a new contract, is one of our possible captains as well. And then I think Rob Holding was captain for a bit last season. He probably isn't going to be first choice this season. So yeah, we're a bit all over the place really with the armband.
It's a bit of an issue with leadership more than just captaincy. I think it's when you don't have leadership, it's kind of easy. And I'm not saying that's why you're saying it, but to say it doesn't matter necessarily captaincy. And I look at my club, and I don't know, James will feel it with Harry Kane as a talisman, and the majority of the time, let's be honest,
Rice goes the captain.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so Mark Noble's our captain. Rice is wearing the armband majority of the time, and I think actually for him, it's really important to see that one character in the middle of the pitch that's leading by example, and keeping the team going and driving it forward. And so, whilst the armband doesn't matter, leadership definitely does matter. And if there's confusion or no clarity on who's the captain, it can also mean there's confusion and clarity on who's offering any leadership to the team sometimes. And when Arsenal have capitulated or been a bit spineless, and it does happen from time to time, that's the problem, right? When everything's going well at Arsenal, all's well and good. It's when the wheels come off, it seems to come off in game. I'm talking about quite badly sometimes.
I think I part asked it just to jump in terms of, was it affecting him? Has it changed him individually, the fact that he's got that representation with him?
No, I don't really think so, because he's always been quite a chilled, relaxed kind of guy. You see like some of the social media clips of him off the pitch, and he's sort of the same chilled, laid back, kind of jokey guy, which perhaps you can make an argument, okay, that's not really what you want in a captain. You want your captain to be serious, sort of dedicated, and lead by example. But he's been a really good influence on a lot of the younger players, and he's helped a lot of like the likes of Saka, Martinelli, and sort of Smith-Rowe as they've come into the squad. He's been really, really good at making sure they feel included. And I think the reason why he's captain is because he's really liked, he's really popular amongst the squad, and he does quite a good job of sort of bringing those players who might be on the fringes, into the team and sort of making the team feel whole and feel connected. So even people like El Neni, who's probably more of a squad player, he makes a real concerted effort to bring those kinds of players, and people like Cedric, who won't start every week and will probably be on the bench more often than not. He makes them feel part of the team, which I think is as important a role as the sort of on the pitch displays of leadership that perhaps we see more frequently as fans, and probably, to be quite honest, care about more because it's what we see. We don't see what goes on behind closed doors.
Suj, Arsenal players you're going to start with?
Well, I think I have the same two that Adam has, and that got me thinking, James. One thing I want to do when we get to the end of the Correspondent Week is see if we can make a team of players that correspondents have from their own team only. So I've got Ben White and Smith-Rowe at the moment. I feel like, Adam, that's the two that you've got from what you've been saying so far.
We were in that brief 30-second period where I accidentally ended up with Pepe in my team, and I haven't logged on this morning to transfer him out yet. So I will be transferring him out today. But he's one that I'm sort of, if I had the balls to make a punt to start off with, he would be one I would consider. But I just don't think it's worth it, really. No. But he's nice to pretend that I have like some kind of aspirations of being adventurous.
I think, for myself, it would be the same main two, White and Smith-Rowe, personally. I think my view on it might be that they might sneak in because I'm probably looking to take a bit of a longer term view on the game. I think for those looking to wildcard after game week 3, you probably start with none, unless you know you're taking the 1 game week punt for the Brentford game because of the Chelsea Man City fixtures. And then obviously from game week 4, Arsenal have a brilliant run of fixtures: Norwich, Burnley, Tottenham, Brighton, Palace, Villa, Leicester, Watford, before going to Anfield in game week 12. So I think during the next international break, Arsenal will really be on the agenda in terms of their assets, and we'll probably have clear clues then in terms of where's Saka coming back into the team, exactly what is Smith-Rowe's positioning, is Chambers staying at right back. Those little answers we'll get the answer to before game week 4. So Arsenal, I think, like Wolves and a couple of others, big circle around game week 4 for me.
I also think, though, if you are planning on wildcarding earlier, I don't know if there's any harm in having someone like Smith-Rowe in, because I think I'm not actually sure what his ownership is at the moment. I'm not sure if either of you.
You're just looking, I could see his arm moving.
I'll have a cheeky look for you, Adam.
I was going to say before I make a.
He's not big anyway.
7.8%.
Well, exactly. So you can sort of see him possibly being the kind of player that people who aren't as engaged notice is starting every week for Arsenal, and it's a lot of it will be as simple as, it's a 5.5 midfielder starting for a big 6 club. And the fact that Arsenal have a lot of fans or Arsenal have a lot of name recognition at the very least, will mean that people will transfer him in. So I wouldn't be surprised if he had a couple of price rises early doors. I could see him being someone like that at the time, a lot of people wildcard is maybe like 5.6, 5.7. And then at that point, you're sort of thinking, well, 5.7 weirdly feels different to 5.5, just in sort of a, like, I'm happy benching him kind of mindset.
I think the decision for me on Smith-Rowe, White is the do I want it? Because I know you've got concerns defensively at the moment. So I'm thinking, do I need to rush this? But I'd kind of like him sitting there maybe for game week 4, and obviously probably start him in game week 1 if you have him. Smith-Rowe, I think the judgment call is, do I want to... Am I happy playing him against Chelsea and Man City in 2 and 3? And I think if the answer to that is yes, then he'll probably find his way in for me as well.
Well, I mean, what happened the last 2 times he played Chelsea?
He scored in both games against Chelsea, didn't he, I think?
I'm not sure if he scored in the first one, but he definitely scored in the second one. And even so, in the one in December, he's the entire reason we won 3, or not the entire reason, he's a huge part in why we won 3-0. That was when we switched formations to the 4-2-3-1, and he was completely pivotal to that performance.
Adam, I wish you luck for the season.
No, you don't.
Yep.
No, I wish you luck. Just I like you. It's just the rest of you I don't like. No, I wish you luck. Just finish below us. Listen, if I'll settle for you finishing 5th if we finish 4th, and I'll settle for you finishing 3rd if we finish 2nd.
I mean, neither of those are going to happen.
No, I know. Just finally, where do you think you'll finish?
I think if we don't finish, top 6, I would say Arteta probably his job will be seriously on the line. Like if we don't finish top 6 and he went, yeah, fair enough. Performances and cup runs and that will impact on how vociferously I'm kind of wanting him to go. But we've got no European football. We've got our youngsters have bedded in more. We've spent a lot of money, and it looks like we're going to spend a little bit more. I think a couple more signings should come in, and no serious departures. So yeah, I think top 6 has to be the goal. Has to be.
Answer the question.
7th.
Thanks, mate. Where can everyone find you on Twitter, Adam?
So I'm at 35who on Twitter, spelled out in letters, not the numbers, because I hate an easy to find handle.
And any other content you want to plug?
No, I mean, I started a Substack. The link is in my Twitter bio. I'll probably do it once every fortnight, once every month, but it's just going to be sort of longer ramblings about sort of esoteric topics on football that I don't want to clog up the Planet FPL listeners with, or my Twitter timeline.
Nice.
Plug it up anytime you like, mate. Thanks, Adam.
Indeed. James, before I wrap this pod, where are we going next? The listeners know what they have to look forward to.
Dirty Leeds, FPL tactician.
Oh, it's a bit harsh.
That's what people call them, dirty Leeds, isn't it?
Well, we shall ask
I'm not bothered
Andy
by them.
why James...
They love it. They love being called dirty
Leeds. Listeners, we're coming up to nearly halfway through, but there's so many more Correspondent Week pods for you to listen to. So wherever you are catching this, make sure you're subscribed and you'll get notified as soon as the podcasts go live. Other than that, stay safe. Chat for now.
Thanks, Adam. Be nice to each other, everyone. Cue music, please, man child.